What do you do when your heart beats for two men who'd rather burn the world down than share you? In the neon-lit haze of my diner, where grease sizzled and secrets simmered, I learned that love could be a battlefield, and I was the prize neither side would surrender. By the time one of them knelt before me with a ring, I'd already lost more than I could bear. My name is Caleb Monroe, a 28-year-old black man running Monroe's Diner in the heart of Red Haven, a gritty coastal town in Oregon. The diner was my father's dream, a relic of the 60s with checkered floors and a jukebox that still played Elvis. I inherited it when he passed, along with his knack for keeping the peace. Red Haven wasn't just a town, it was a pressure cooker. Two rival gangs, the Iron Wolves and the Crimson Vipers, had carved it up like a pie, and my diner sat smack in the neutral zone, a no-man's land where deals were struck and blood was rarely spilled. I made it my mission to keep it that way. But neutrality is a tightrope, and I was never good at balancing. It started with Javier Torres, 29, the Iron Wolves leader. He was a storm in human form, Latino, broad-shouldered, with dark eyes that could pin you to the wall or melt you into the floor. He'd stride into the diner at midnight, his leather jacket creaking, and claim the corner booth like it was his throne. His crew followed, all tattoos and quiet menace. But Javier? He'd flash a grin that made my pulse stutter. Caleb, he'd say, voice low, you ever gonna put my name on the menu? I'd laugh it off, but every time he lingered, pouring sugar into his coffee like it was a ritual, I felt the air shift. Then there was Marcus Reed, 27, the Crimson Viper's sharp-edged prince. Lean, black, with a smile that could charm a snake, he was the opposite of Javier's brute force, calculated, smooth, like a blade wrapped in velvet. He'd come in at dawn, when the diner was quiet, and sit at the counter, sketching on napkins while sipping black coffee. You're wasted here, Caleb, he'd say, his eyes tracing me like I was a puzzle he wanted to solve. This town's too small for you. His words stuck, burrowing into me until I couldn't shake them. I didn't mean to fall for either of them. Hell, I didn't even know I could feel this way, torn between two men who ruled opposite sides of a war. But love doesn't ask permission, and in Red Haven, it came with a body count. It was a rainy Tuesday when the trouble started. Javier was in his booth, his wolves sprawled around him, their laughter loud over the jukebox. Marcus walked in alone, his usual swagger dialed up, a crimson bandana tucked into his pocket like a dare. The air went taut. I was behind the counter, wiping it down for the 10th time, when Marcus leaned in close. You look tired, Caleb. Let me take you somewhere quiet after this. His voice was honey, but his eyes flicked to Javier, a challenge. Javier didn't miss it. He stood, slow and deliberate, his boots heavy on the floor. You got business here, Reed? He asked, his voice a low growl. The diner went silent, forks pausing midair. My heart slammed against my ribs. I'd seen fights break out over less, a wrong look, a spilled drink. But this was personal. Javier, Marcus, not here, I said, stepping between them. My voice was steady, but inside, I was unraveling. How do you stop two men who'd kill for you from killing each other? I looked at Javier, his jaw tight, then at Marcus, his smile sharp enough to cut. This is my place. No blood, no bullshit. Javier's eyes softened for a split second, but Marcus laughed, low and dangerous. Your place, huh? Funny how it's the only spot in town where we're both welcome. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. Wonder why that is. I didn't have an answer, not one I could say out loud. But as they stared each other down, I realized I was the reason they kept coming back. And that scared me more than any gun in Red Haven. Over the next few weeks, the tension thickened like fog. Javier started showing up more, leaving tips folded into origami wolves, each one with a note. Meet me after close. Marcus countered, slipping me sketches of the diner, my face in the lines, with scrawled messages like, "You're my safe haven." I kept them both at arm's length, but every touch, Javier's hand brushing mine when I passed him a plate, Marcus's fingers lingering on my wrist, chipped away at my resolve. One night, after closing, Javier stayed behind. The diner was empty, the rain hammering the windows. He stood by the jukebox, his silhouette sharp against the neon glow. "Caleb," he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "You know I'd burn this town down for you." I froze, my hand on a rag. "Don't say that," I whispered. "This town's all I've got." He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell leather and smoke. "You've got me," he said, and before I could think, his lips were on mine. It was fire, fierce, consuming, like he'd been holding it back for years. I kissed him back, my hands fisting in his jacket, and for a moment, Red Haven didn't exist. But then the door swung open, and Marcus stood there, rain dripping from his jacket. His eyes locked on us, and the hurt in them gutted me. "So that's how it is," he said, his voice flat. He turned and walked out, the door slamming behind him. I pulled away from Javier, my chest tight. "I didn't mean," I started, but he shook his head. "You don't get to play neutral forever, Caleb," he said. "Choose." But how do you choose when both sides of your heart are at war? The days after Marcus walked out felt like walking through a minefield. Every creak of the diner's door made me flinch, expecting him, or worse, his vipers, to storm in. But he didn't show, and the absence of his easy smile left a hole I hadn't realized he'd filled. Javier, though, was a constant. He'd linger after closing, his wolves keeping watch outside, and every night, he'd push a little harder. "You feel it too, don't you?" he'd say, his hand grazing my arm. I did, but guilt gnawed at me. Marcus's face, etched with betrayal, haunted me. Red Haven was unraveling. Word spread that the Vipers were planning something big, a move on the Wolves' territory. The diner, my sanctuary, became a pressure point. Regulars stopped coming, scared off by the leather jackets and cold stares. My cook, Rosa, a 50-year-old Puerto Rican woman who'd seen it all, pulled me aside one morning. "Caleb, you're playing with fire. Those boys don't share, and this place won't survive a war." She was right, but what could I do? Tell Javier to stop coming? Tell Marcus I didn't miss him? My heart was a traitor, pulling me in two directions. I'd always thought love was supposed to feel safe, but this was chaos. Beautiful, terrifying chaos. One evening, as I locked up, I found a sketch taped to the door. It was Marcus's work, a drawing of me behind the counter, my face lit by the diner's glow. Underneath, in his sharp handwriting, "I'm not giving up." My chest ached. I tucked the sketch into my pocket, but before I could process it, headlights cut through the dark. A black SUV rolled up, and Marcus stepped out, alone. "Caleb," he said, his voice steady but raw, "we need to talk." I glanced at the diner, my safe zone, then back at him. "Not here," I said. "Not now." "Then when?" he snapped, stepping closer. "When Javier's got you locked down. When this town's ash." His anger startled me, but his eyes, God, they were pleading. "I saw you with him. I know what's happening, but I'm not walking away." I opened my mouth, but no words came. How do you tell someone you're drowning in feelings for them and their enemy? Before I could try, tires screeched. Javier's truck pulled up, and he was out in a heartbeat, his wolves behind him. "Back off, Reed," he growled, his hand on the gun at his hip. Marcus didn't flinch. "This ain't your call, Torres. Caleb's not yours." The air crackled, and I stepped between them, my hands up. "Enough," I shouted. "You're tearing everything apart." My voice broke, and for a moment, they both froze, their eyes on me. I hated how much I wanted them both, how their rivalry was shredding my world. Javier's hand dropped from his gun. "Caleb," he said softly, "I'm trying to protect you." "Protect me?" I laughed, bitter. You're both gonna get me killed. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Instead, he turned and left, his SUV peeling out into the night. Javier stayed, his eyes searching mine. You're wrong about one thing, he said. I'd die before I let that happen. He left too, and I stood alone in the parking lot, the sketch in my pocket burning like a brand. I didn't know it then, but that night set everything in motion. The next week, the diner was a ghost town. Rosa quit, saying she couldn't watch me burn for those fools. I couldn't blame her. The wolves and vipers were circling, their wars spilling closer. One night, a brick crashed through the diner's window, a note tied to it. Choose a side, or we choose for you. I didn't know who sent it, but it didn't matter. My neutrality was gone. Javier showed up at dawn, his face bruised, his jacket torn. They hit one of our warehouses, he said, his voice tight. Vipers. This is war, Caleb. He grabbed my hand, his grip desperate. Come with me. I can keep you safe. I pulled back, shaking my head. And what? Hide, while Red Haven burns. This diner's all I have, Javier. I'm not leaving. His eyes darkened. You think Marcus will save you? He's playing you, Caleb. He's not who you think. Before I could respond, the door chimed. Marcus walked in, his face calm, but his eyes stormy. He's lying to you, he said, glaring at Javier. Ask him about the deal he made with the cartel. Ask him what he's willing to sacrifice. Javier lunged, and I barely got between them, shoving them apart. Stop it, I yelled. You're both tearing me apart. If you care about me, leave. Now. They didn't. Not really. They kept coming back, each staking their claim, and I was too weak to push them away. Every touch, every look, pulled me deeper. But Red Haven was a powder keg, and I was the spark. The war exploded on a Friday. Gunshots echoed through Red Haven, and by morning, the news was screaming about a shootout at the docks. 3 wolves dead, 2 vipers. My diner was still standing, but it felt like a target. I stopped sleeping, my nights spent scrubbing counters to keep my hands busy, my mind replaying Javier's kisses and Marcus's sketches. I was losing myself, and I didn't know how to stop. Javier came first, blood on his shirt, his eyes wild. Caleb, you need to get out of town. Now. He grabbed my shoulders, his hands shaking. The vipers are coming for you. They think you're with me. I pushed him off, my heart racing. I'm not with anyone. I'm trying to keep this place alive. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. You think this is just about the diner? I love you, Caleb. I've loved you since the first night I walked in here. The words hit like a punch. I wanted to say them back, but Marcus's face flashed in my mind, and I couldn't. Javier, I whispered, I can't do this. Not now. He left without another word, and I hated myself for it. Hours later, Marcus appeared, his usual calm fractured. I heard what happened, he said, his voice low. Torres is wrong. I never hurt you. Then why's your crew targeting my diner? I snapped, holding up the brick from the window. This your idea of love? His face fell. That wasn't me. I swear. He stepped closer, his hand reaching for mine. Caleb, I'd do anything for you. Run away with me. We'll leave Red Haven, start over. I laughed hollow. And what? Leave my father's dream behind? You don't get it, Marcus. This place is me. He didn't argue, just left another sketch on the counter, a drawing of us, together, somewhere far from here. I kept it, like I kept all his sketches, but I didn't know what to believe anymore. The next night, the diner was hit. Molotov cocktails shattered the windows, flames licking the walls. I grabbed a fire extinguisher, coughing through the smoke, but the damage was done. The jukebox was a melted heap, the booths charred. I sank to the floor, ash in my lungs, and cried for the first time since my father died. Javier found me there, his face pale. Caleb, he whispered, kneeling beside me. I'm so sorry. He pulled me into his arms, and I let him, too broken to care. But then Marcus arrived, his eyes blazing as he saw us. Get your hands off him, Torres, he snarled. I stood, wiping my face. Stop it, both of you. I gestured at the ruins of my diner. This is what your ward did. You don't love me. You love owning me. They both flinched, but neither backed down. Javier's voice was hoarse. I'll rebuild it. I'll make this right. Marcus shook his head. He'll drag you down with him, Caleb. I can give you a future. I walked away from them both, the ashes of my life crunching under my feet. I didn't know how to fix this, but I knew I couldn't keep being their battleground. For weeks, I stayed with my cousin, Lena, a 32-year-old nurse who lived on the edge of town. She didn't ask questions, just handed me coffee and let me stare at the wall. The diner was boarded up, a ghost of itself. Javier sent money, anonymous deposits to my account. Marcus sent sketches, mailed to Lena's house. I didn't respond to either, but I couldn't throw them away. One night, Lena sat me down. Caleb, you gotta choose. Not them. Yourself. What do you want? I didn't know. I wanted the diner back. I wanted Javier's fire and Marcus's quiet strength. I wanted a life where love didn't come with a body count. But Red Haven didn't work that way. The war didn't stop. The wolves hit a Viper's safe house. The Vipers torched a wolves bar. I stayed out of it, but the guilt ate at me. Had I caused this? Could I have stopped it? I didn't know, but I couldn't keep hiding. I went back to the diner. The board's still up, the air heavy with soot. I started cleaning, one piece at a time. It was all I had left. And then, one morning, I found Javier there, hammer in hand, fixing a broken booth. You don't give up, do you? He said, his smile tired but real. I didn't answer, just picked up a broom. We worked in silence, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Javier and I rebuilt the diner, piece by piece. It wasn't the same, new booths, a new jukebox, but it was something. Marcus stayed away, but his sketches kept coming, each one a quiet plea. I didn't know how to face him, not after everything. Red Haven was still a war zone, but the diner became my anchor again. I poured myself into it, trying to forget the ache in my chest. One night, Javier stayed late, his hands stained with paint. Caleb, he said, setting down his brush. I'm done with the wolves. I'm out. I stared at him, stunned. You can't just walk away. They'll kill you. He shrugged, his eyes steady. I'd rather die trying than lose you to this war. Before I could respond, the door opened. Marcus stood there, his face unreadable. Heard you're rebuilding, he said. Thought you could use this. He handed me a check, enough to cover the repairs. I started to protest, but he cut me off. I'm not here to fight, Caleb. I'm here to end it. He looked at Javier, then back at me. I'm out too. Vipers can find another leader. I'm done. I didn't believe them, not at first. But over the next month, they proved it. Javier handed the wolves to his second-in-command, a gruff woman named Carla. Marcus walked away from the Vipers, leaving them to fracture. Red Haven didn't heal overnight, but the gunfire slowed, and people started coming back to the diner. I didn't choose between them. I couldn't. But they both stayed, helping me rebuild, their rivalry fading into something quieter, something shared. We never talked about it, but the air between us changed. Javier's touches were softer, Marcus's smiles less guarded. I didn't know what we were, but it felt like enough. One evening, a year later, the diner was packed, the jukebox humming. I was behind the counter, laughing with a regular, when Javier called me to the back. I found him kneeling, a ring in his hand, his eyes nervous but sure. Caleb Monroe, he said, I've loved you through a war. Marry me. My breath caught. Before I could answer, Marcus stepped out from the shadows, his own ring in hand. I'm not letting him win that easy, he said, his voice teasing but thick with emotion. Caleb, you're my home. Marry me. I looked between them, my heart pounding. Two men, two rings, two futures I couldn't imagine without. The diner went quiet, all eyes on us. I laughed, tears in my eyes, and sank to my knees between them. You idiots, I said. I'm not choosing. And I didn't. Not in the way they expected. We didn't have a word for what we became. Three men, bound by a love that defied Red Haven's rules. The diner thrived, a beacon in a town learning to heal. Javier and Marcus never stopped bickering, but they stayed, and so did I. Love, I learned, wasn't about choosing a side. It was about building something new, something stronger than the wars we'd fought. My diner had hosted rival gang bosses, and somehow, it became the place where we all found peace.